Now we need to focus on saving our country. Things are coming to a head. You know, in Wisconsin, the rabble is on the move. And they think they have this Judge Sumi all wrapped up, and she appears to be, because she just ruled that the governor is not to any further enforce the law. She wants more time at a hearing. They have an incredibly important Supreme Court race. Yes, they elect their Supreme Court justices in Wisconsin, as they do in many states. And the leftist who's running, Joanne Kloppenberg, is being pushed hard by the public sector unions and the leftist professors and all the rest. She's a flunky of the Chief Justice of that court. And they're trying to replace the conservative incumbent justice on the court, David Prosser. And if they succeed, it is very likely they'll get a 4-3 majority on the Supreme Court of Wisconsin and throw out the Scott Walker budget reform law. This election's on April 5th. It's next week. Prosser is way behind on his fundraising efforts, I believe. We are linking to his website, if you're interested, on my social sites. And we're also going to talk to him in a few minutes when I conduct, I believe, the first nationally syndicated interview of the justice, so he can tell us exactly what's going on there. And I will be careful not to get involved in any of the cases for his sake, because I know the rules of ethics. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
It's your daily adult dosage of the Constitution. The Mark Levin Show. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
There is a hugely important event taking place in Wisconsin that affects all of us. It affects the rule of law, it affects the franchise, and it's being fought out over a position on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. There's an incumbent there who I myself will refer to as the conservative Supreme Court Justice David Prosser. This election is on April 5th, and his opponent, I guess, is Joanne Kloppenberg, who is a left-wing assistant something or other with the state, and I guess she used to work for the Chief Justice, I guess, of the court, who is quite liberal. Justice Prosser, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, Mark. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, it's my pleasure. I think this is extremely important. I've been reading that there's an enormous effort underway, particularly by the union, spending a fortune on TV, smearing the hell out of you. Is that what's going on?
That's absolutely the case. I think $3 million has been purchased by a group called the Greater Wisconsin Committee that runs extremely negative ads, misleading ads, and in case the latest ad, an outright smear ad that is factually false.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are they accusing you of? Hanging outside the ladies' room or something? I mean, these people get pretty low.
There are two kinds of ads. The first ad was one that basically said Prosser equals Walker, linking me to the governor of the state and to specific legislation. And the purpose of that ad is to try to get people who are angry about collective bargaining legislation to take it out on me, someone in the independent third branch who had nothing to do with the legislation, and who would be bound to look at everything on the facts and the law and to decide it impartially. So I feel a little bit like someone standing on the street corner, and it's a drive-by shooting. I'm the nearest target simply because I used to be a Republican legislator many, many years ago. The other part is an ad that deals with a case that I handled as a district attorney 33 years ago. It was a case of child sexual abuse by a priest. We did not prosecute the case. I thought there were very good reasons not to prosecute it. It was not to cover it up, but we handled it differently. And in 2020 hindsight, people are trying to take a different look at that. But it has been evaluated, the ad has been evaluated by the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel and found to be very misleading. And it is very misleading. There are factual misrepresentations, multiple factual misrepresentations in the ad.
So I have to assume by trashing you, they're supporting your opponent. I mean, they must think that your opponent is a pretty good bet to help them.
There really is no question about that. They are trying to put someone on the court who is a far-left ideologue. She is known to be a far-left ideologue by colleagues in the Wisconsin Department of Justice. She is a hero in the environmental community. She has supported Green Party candidates and principals. She's contributed consistently to very liberal candidates and judges, and that is her record. There is no hiding the fact that she would be the ideal candidate for groups like the Sierra Club and like the Green Party.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, MoveOn.org has a massive campaign going on to raise funds against you, to get people into Wisconsin, to not only oppose you, but to support her. So I guess they figure that she's an absolute certain vote to overturn this law. And you've pointed out you're not a certain vote to do anything. You're gonna do what a judge or a justice is supposed to do. But obviously they think she won't.
Well, there is a history in Wisconsin of rather disturbing judicial activism on the part of certain liberal members of the court. My opponent once was an intern for the leader of that liberal bloc, and there's such an identity between the two that it would be hard to separate them. I think that people are saying she's almost a certain vote to serve as an obstacle to legislation that comes out of the legislature under Governor Walker and a newly Republican legislature. Of course, there's a presumption of constitutionality for all legislation that comes out unless it's subject to very strict scrutiny, and this I don't think would be.
Mm-hmm. We're not going to get into any decisions because I'm not going to put you on the spot or any potential cases, but are you getting support in Wisconsin? I mean, I know the other side is almost in a mob-like mentality, but are you getting effective support in the state for your campaign?
Mark, this is my 15th election, including some primary elections. I have never received such enthusiastic support from people all around Wisconsin. We had some great events today in Milwaukee and the immediate area of Milwaukee. So I feel good that a lot of people throughout Wisconsin understand the stakes in this election. We're talking about a term for 10 years in which hundreds and hundreds of cases will be decided by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I think the people of Wisconsin, by and large, get it. But if there isn't a substantial turnout, if only the angry unionists turn out, anything can happen. There can be an accident. And so conservatives, business people, moderates must turn out, or there could be a radical change in the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm. And radical, you're right. Now, let me ask you this. You have agreed, as did apparently your opponent, that you will not, that only $300,000 will be used in this election. But she has a lot of support, obviously, millions, you just talked about it, coming in from these other sources and these other organizations and so forth. How about if people want to volunteer to help on Election Day? Can they do that through your website, or do they have to work through other organizations?
Well, my website, justiceprosser.com, does provide for volunteers to call in and try to assist. One of the problems with that, however, is that when you only have $300,000 to run a statewide campaign, mm-hmm. there aren't necessarily going to be there isn't really an adequate office, there isn't adequate staff to handle all the volunteers. I would ask people to just simply talk, to get involved themselves, to talk to their friends, to get them to understand the stakes in this race. And I think the more talking that goes on, there will be some independent organizations that I can't deal with and shouldn't know about that might be able to be helpful. Obviously, independent expenditures cannot be linked up with a candidate.
Mm-hmm. And yet there's a ton of money flowing in from the other side. I'm sure they never talk to each other.
Well, we've talked here about $3 million worth of purchased media. That doesn't really tell you anything about the union effort on the ground. That's a separate kind
Which
of
is where they're best, by the way. They are best at turning out the vote.
That's exactly right. And so there has to be a counter effort. People cannot afford to stay home on this election day. Really, the whole campaign is pitched to trying to pick a justice who will decide specific cases in a specific way in the short term, when this is a 10-year term, and there are hundreds of other cases. When we start selecting justices at the ballot box in order to decide specific cases that haven't even been argued yet, we are truly destroying judicial independence in our state and in our country.
Are the political parties involved in this in any official way?
I am certainly getting support indirectly from the Republican Party, and my opponent is undoubtedly getting support from the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm. All right, Justice. Well, I'm talking to Justice David Prosser. He's up for re-election April 5th. The public sector unions, the other unions, the outside groups, MoveOn.org want to take him down because they feel they have in this Joanne Kloppenberg a reliable leftist and a reliable vote. You know, that kind of ticks me off as an attorney myself. Well, they think they have a reliable vote? I mean, so it's you're buying and selling votes? Something about that's a real turnoff to me.
Well, Mark, you had a chapter in your book, Men in Black, on liberals stack the bench. We do it a little bit differently here through the ballot box. But if this wasn't a classic case of trying to stack the bench to decide specific cases and to rule in a certain way over a long period of time, I don't know what we'll see. I mean, this is it. This is ground zero to test whether that's going to work.
You're absolutely right. What is your website again, sir?
JusticeProsser.com.
JusticeProsser.com. Now, we have a decent, sizable audience in the state of Wisconsin. I hope you folks are listening. If each of you talk to 10 people, that is a terrific thing to do. And, Justice, I wish you all the best, sir.
Thank you so much, Mark.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Now, anybody who read Men in Black has to be good. Don't you think, Mr. Producer? I mean, that's my test. No, I'm just kidding. All right, he's not allowed to say it, but I'm reading a terrific National Review Online piece by Robert Costa, Wisconsin Fight Goes to Court. Mr. Producer, let's get that on my social sites. Let's get that on the home site, website, and keep it up there. One of the independent groups that apparently is going to be helping in these campaigns is the Wisconsin Club for Growth. The Wisconsin Club for Growth. Maybe we can find that website, Mr. Producer, Mr. Call Screener, and get that up on the social sites. You do what you want. I'm not here advocating because there are certain rules that apply to me too. But if you're interested, by all means, take a look. As a public service, of course. Let's see here. Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, a Chamber of Commerce type group, will also be instrumental in helping Prosser compete financially. Let's look for that one too. Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce. Those are the only two I'm aware of. If there are others, well, good. So there are ways to participate.